The following was recorded during the COVID-19 pandemic through Zoom meetings in accordance with local health guidelines. Hi, I'm Mike Maloney, and welcome to another CSRM podcast. Today's episode is hosted by Dr. Greg Linville.
Welcome back. Here we are. We're talking about Overwhelming Victory Radio. Over the last few weeks, we've been talking about the transition that's taking place within CSRM, both in leadership. We're moving from a current executive director in David Waddell to our future in Dan Stouffer. And we're talking about how the board and different things are transitioning. One of the transitions is happening within our resource department. We have created and started what we're calling now Overwhelming Victory Radio. And the Overwhelming Victory Radio is a series of podcasts that audio and videos that you can watch, listen to, and we're creating this in a way that gives you the things that you might expect as the sports or rec minister or fitness director of the church, meaning how do I do my fitness class? How do I run my league? How do I do the camp? But we're also hitting some a little more peripheral things about how can I stay married and enjoy it with the marriage mentoring that White and Angela McDowell that you heard about a couple of podcasts ago. Talking about who was supposed to teach me that? And when was I want to raise my hand because I never learned that in school. They didn't teach me that in seminary. And David and John and their podcasts can help us with a lot of those lessons that come out of huge success and also some hard failures. But just how do we navigate through the years of being a sports minister? And we're talking now on this segment with our future executive director, Dan Stouffer. And Dan, we welcome back into the podcast here, and also just tell us, what is this Tuesday Talk thing all about?
Yeah, well, Greg, I guess I could turn around and ask you that same question, because I think it was birthed from you and Andrew. But what's really interesting is it started out as COVID conversations last May, and it really has turned into something that monthly, I think, sports ministers around the world are looking forward to. Basically, what we decided last spring of 2020, when the pandemic hit and churches were pivoting and scrambling, especially sports ministers, is once again the heartbeat of CSRM. How can we continue to equip these sports ministers that are trying to figure out how they can continue ministry? And so we started off with, I think we did it weekly there back in May of 2020. And now we have transitioned to what I call a monthly online roundtable that takes place with sports ministers from all around our world. It's a very organic conversations. We have very specific topics that we talk about and some conversationalists. I'm one of the hosts. Greg is as well. And then also Greg English of Cool Springs Baptist is also one of our hosts as well. And we usually have 2 to 3 conversationalists who are experts in that field. And we just talk about that topic. And we've got, what's really cool, we've got people who are part of our Tuesday Talks, whether as a conversationalist or just someone who's watching. And they all submit questions. And we've got people from Kenya. We've got people here in the States who are part of, a church of thousands, to a church planner like myself who's just starting out, to someone who doesn't have even a sports ministry yet, but they're interested in it and maybe don't even have a whole lot of resources. So it's a very diverse gathering, which is good, around very specific and very organic conversation that God has really blessed us with. So it's just kind of it's kind of taking off. And those are all archived. And so I would imagine that there are staff meetings that watch those Tuesday talks, and they continue that conversation if people can't join us live. And so we're really excited about it. And it really has been something that God has blessed over the past year, which is really interesting for me to even say that. So,
Andrew, what questions do you have for us? Andrew, what question?
Oh, I thought you said Dan. That's why I was waiting for Dan to ask you a question. Yeah, it's been very interesting to watch the Tuesday talk progression, because it did just kind of start out as just a, general meeting of a couple sports ministry friends that wanted just to connect with each other and check in on each other. And then it's grown and grown and grown. One thing I think we would want to highlight right now would be, Dan, Greg, you guys can tell us what kind of topics do we have coming up? I know we've not really shied away from anything. We've hit racial reconciliation head on. Last month, you guys went over, what do we do with change? How do we lead through change? We've covered a lot of different things. So what kind of things should we expect here coming up in the future?
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I've actually got this right in front of me because we've been working on it. Andrew, you got us up to speed here up through March. And so these conversations currently happen live the last Tuesday of each month. So the next one at the end of April 27th, we're going to talk about making disciples. So many sports ministers do a great job of reaching those in their community who are far from Christ, and at least get them from the community to the field, or from the community into their gym. But now we're talking about, okay, what can we do to get people then from the field or the gym to the sanctuary, and then ultimately into that discipling environment? Because we know with the Great Commission, we are called to make disciples. And we're going to talk about that with some experts, and just talk about some very practical ways that we can make discipleship happen through our sport, rec, and fitness ministries. Then at the end of May 25th, we're going to talk about mental health. With the whole pandemic, it's been hard. I'm sure many of you, if you're listening to this podcast, you felt the weariness of all the dominoes that have fell during this time. And as a sports minister, again, you probably have had to pivot. You probably at least have gone a period of time of not interacting much with people face to face, or at least there's social distancing and there's masks, and it's hard. And so we're going to talk about that. We're hoping to have some counselors on that call as well, on that roundtable conversation, just talking about how we can make sure that we are healthy, and understand that there's periods of time that we're just not right, and it's okay. We can find healing, and I'm really looking forward to that conversation. Then at the end of June, this is such a super important relationship and topic, because I've actually been on both sides, and we're going to talk about the relationship between the sports minister and the senior minister, and how that can be good. And so we're going to interview both senior ministers who have a sports minister on their staff, and then sports ministers who work for a senior minister. And hopefully that's a very positive conversation. And hopefully we can get really practical there too, because that is such a very important topic for us to talk about. There's some other things we're kicking around, especially as we lead into late summer and fall, that we haven't quite landed on yet. But obviously, if you pay attention to our social media and to our website with CSRM, you'll hear more about that. But that catches us up to speed over the next several months.
And then,
go for it, Greg.
And the difference between the Tuesday talk and the podcast that we're doing here, the podcast is designed for somebody to put on the headphones and get on their treadmill, or go out for a run, or commute to work, and it's a 20, 25-minute kind of segment of time. And it has more to do with interviewing people, and more of how do we do this in very specific thing. And the Tuesday talks are a little bit more overarching, like that racial reconciliation, how sports and rec and fitness are more positioned in a local church to be able to bring about racial reconciliation than anything else in that church typically. It's a little bit more overarching that it impacts almost everybody that's employed at least to do sports rec or fitness. And it's a more relaxed. It's not you got to get in and get out because I'm done with my commute to work. It's something that you can sit and reflect on a little bit longer, and it's a conversation amongst people. So there's a little bit of a difference between the two, and those are some of the distinguishing factors of it. All of them, we hope, would be used by sports ministers as you throw up a certain part of it on your screen at your staff meeting, you talk about it. Or you're teaching a class at the university and you put it up there and this is what's being said and you have that as part of your curriculum. But however people use it, it's the resources that are out there. I'd like to ask Dave and John your thoughts and perspectives of the Tuesday talks and what you have maybe garnered, or why should somebody, John, like in your position, why should they use it? How would you use those?
Well, we all should be interested in learning, developing, growing in our faith walk, in our ministry. And there's a lot to be said from those Tuesday talks and what we can learn from each other. None of us have all of the answers. And so having that venue where you can hear a variety of opinions, a variety of examples of successes and failures, what's worked here, what hasn't, and being able to apply that to your specific situation is just invaluable.
I've found it just very helpful in the broad spectrum of professionals and knowledgeable people that you guys get on in the different topics of meeting new people, but it's always so topic specific. It's helping with a particular thing that a sports and recreation minister would be dealing with or going through. So I find them very timely, very topical, just to keep with the alliteration of the T on Tuesday Talks.
The other nice thing about these is the fact that it gives sports ministers the opportunity, whether they're domestic or not, to be able to directly access and ask somebody that's been there, somebody that's an expert in their field that they may not, whether they feel like their church isn't big enough to garner that kind of respect, whether it's they feel like their church is too big to be able to ask, whatever it is, it breaks down those walls and just allows ministers to talk shop together for a while. It's one thing that we lose a little bit of it in, ironically, the Overwhelming Victory Radio side of things, because it's already been recorded and you don't have the opportunity to chat in questions and things like that. But at the same time, you're still able to garner a lot of things out of these experts that you normally don't get to see them in a situation they normally don't see them in. If you are able to, I would recommend definitely trying to jump onto the Tuesday Talks live, even more so than listening to it, although we love that you're listening. But it's a completely different atmosphere than what you would normally expect from an organization that's been around however long, since we can't ever agree on the year, however old we are. But it still allows for new ministers, people that may not even be in ministry yet, they're just interested in it, to be able to come in. You're a part of the family, you're a part of the conversation, and it allows for an equal playing field for everybody to throw out ideas, to take ideas, and to be able to navigate, the sports ministry world, and especially the ever-changing sports ministry world thanks to COVID. So that's Dan, you've done an excellent job kind of taking more of the reins on that. Greg English, we love the fact that you're now fully invested. Your insight is always valuable as well. Greg, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you guys if they're interested either with a topic, wanting to join the mailing list to get the Zoom invites, or even just to get in touch, maybe they feel like they would be a good conversationalist for one of these things that Dan's mentioned, what's the best way to get in touch with you guys?
You can always contact us through the website, but if you want to get on a regular email list to know what the topics are and what the days are, that kind of thing, you can also sign up for that. And I'm sure that those that are watching this, it'll come up on the screen, all the contact information. If you're listening to this and you're not watching it and you want to go back and watch it even just for this segment of it, there'll be a lot of the hyperlinks, etc., that'll come up on the screen. And call us, give us a call, email us, whatever. Dan, myself, Craig English, let us know what you're thinking about these things. And I think your point, Andrew, is excellent, that the differentiation of the Tuesday Talk is the fact that you can participate in the conversation in a live way, that the recorded OVR stuff that we put out most of the time, you might be able to contact somebody afterwards, but you can't engage in the conversation. And that's part of, we understand all that, but that's why one of the reasons we do the Tuesday Talks is to engage people.
Hey, Greg, if I can say one other thing about the Tuesday Talks, the connections that take place through that are really valuable. I know of several who have emailed or texted or connected in some way where they can follow up with somebody, a day or two later or weeks later, or, you were able to put a face with a name and reach out to somebody and ask them questions about whatever you might be dealing with. And so those connections have been really valuable. So I'm glad we're doing that.
Great point. Well, I think we're coming down to the end of this podcast, and we're gonna continue on. Yeah, we've got more to talk about. We're going to talk a little bit about a couple of things that are a little bit futuristic. Cowtown adventures. Now, if that doesn't intrigue you, I'm not sure what will, but also how this is taking place and shaping and being formed in an African context and how we're going that direction. And we've got also to hear from our ministry misfits. So we're going to wrap this one up, but the next one's going to help us finish, as you will, this whole conversation about where CSRM is transitioning into with our digital, our whole overwhelming victory radio perspective. So thanks to each of you. We'll hope to see you next week on the next podcast.
The CSRM podcast is a production of the Association of Church Sports and Recreation Ministers and their video production house, Overwhelming Victory Flix. Dr. Greg Linville is the executive producer, and Andrew Fouts is associate producer and editor. For more information about CSRM, visit csrm.org. For more information about Overwhelming Victory, visit overwhelmingvictory.org. The CSRM podcast is the flagship member of a new podcast network called Overwhelming Victory Radio. For more information on Overwhelming Victory Radio or to listen to our partner podcasts, visit overwhelmingvictory.org/OVRadio. For CSRM Podcasts, I'm Mike Maloney. Have a blessed day.